Welcome. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us in this educational Lunch and Learn, which is brought to you by Family Partners of Morris and Sussex counties. Today is joining us from Edge, New Jersey, Nicolas Lepper. Right here, this is your host, Patricia Houston. And with that, I will pass on this presentation to Nicolas. Welcome, Nicolas.
Well, thank you so much for the invite. Appreciate being invited into this space to share this workshop that we put together. I'm gonna bring it up now. So this is our LGBTQ plus cultural humility workshop. We'll be covering a lot of different statistics, terminology, all these different kind of competencies that revolve around the LGBTQ plus community, queer community. I will go slow to use the chat feature if you have any questions to kind of ask that as we move along. If I need to go back on a slide, if I need to further explain a certain topic, I'm here for it. Totally willing to elaborate on anything that you would like further detail on. As introduced earlier, my name is Nicolas Lepper. I use he, him, himself pronouns, which puts me into the cisgender community. And we'll go further into what exactly that community is in a few more slides, but I am one of the development coordinators alongside of Daniela Mendez, who's also featured on this slide. And we both are development coordinators at Edge, New Jersey. Edge, New Jersey is an LGBTQ plus queer pride center in Morris County. We are actually the only pride center in Morris County, and we're the most comprehensive one in the state of New Jersey. We provide services at little to no cost, even if individuals don't have funds to access services like case management, behavioral health, or have insurance. We still have a sliding scale, or we'll just completely waive the total cost of the fee so that these essential services can be accessed by anyone, regardless of someone's funds to be able to access them. We do medical and non-medical case management, where we help our members go through the whole legal process of legal name changing, also gender markers, or medication management. We provide behavioral counseling, LGBTQ plus affirming counseling, as well as HIV positive affirming counseling and prevention, and also with substance use, because we recognize that substance use has a high prevalence in the LGBTQ plus community. We also offer free rapid HIV testing and STI screening in our center. And then we also have a mobile unit van that can be dispatched anywhere in the state of New Jersey. So if you know of any community events, or if you would like one stationed at your center or at your place of work, just reach out, let us know, and we can coordinate that. We also do incentives where people who are getting HIV rapid testing can get a $15 gift card. Residential services. So we have an LGBTQ plus youth rapid rehousing program where we house LGBTQ plus youth between the ages of 18 to 24 years old. And then we also have a long-term, regardless of the age, HIV positive residential program. And we adopt a scattered model. So our members who are part of these two programs are able to pick and choose wherever they want to live in the counties that we service. And we negotiate directly with their landlord, and we pay up to 80 to 90 to sometimes 100% of their monthly rent on their behalf, depending on what their benefits are and what their monthly income is. We also offer transportation assistance. So even if someone doesn't have a car or have access to public transportation, we know that public transportation still has a long way to go in New Jersey, depending on where you're located. We are able to dispatch a Lyft to come and pick up that member to attend our community center, whether that be to be part of a social support group or to, access their behavioral counseling session. We're able to do that on our end. We also have an Edge van and an Edge car. We also do educational community workshops, which is what we're essentially doing here today. We also have other workshops that we have available, such as an HIV 101, a newly diagnosis HIV training, and we also have a transgender non-binary specific workshop, which dives deeper into those specific communities. And then we also have member activities, which range from member cafe lounge activity to bowling, to arts and crafts, and the list goes on and on. These activities change monthly and they are free to access. And then we have community events. And these range from our New Jersey AIDS Walk. Edge New Jersey is part of one of the 5 organizations that puts on the New Jersey AIDS Walk for the state. And that's happening on May 5th. And for the Morris County location, if you have that available and you want to show up and raise awareness, that will be on May 5th at the Central Park of Morris County. And then we also do Morris County's own Morris County Pride Festival, which happens every year. This will be the 4th year we're doing it. And it'll be at the County College of Morris in Randolph, New Jersey. And that's a huge event where we see over 1,000 people that come out to partake in this event. We have about 80 vendors, which range from local resources, very similar to the work that you do, all the way up to Planned Parenthood, to Buddies, to JBWS, and the list goes on and on. We also have all-day live queer entertainment, such as queer-led bands, comedians, solo acts, drag performances. We also have a beer garden hosted by Glenbrook Brewery. We have tons of food truck. We also offer our free HIV rapid testing at that event. So if you'd like more information, you can just email me, call me, or you can get all that information at our website, www.edgenj.org. And then we also have social support groups, which range from our youth social support group for 13-year-olds all the way up to 18-year-olds, to our transgender non-binary social support group, to HIV positive support groups, to HIV newly diagnosis, HIV support groups, and long-term survivor HIV support groups. And all those are free. You don't have to be a member to be a part of it. You can just walk right in and join the group. We have workshops with facilitators that come and talk about a specific trade or skill, or able to walk through an arts and crafts activity with our members. So there's always something new to be a part of. And once again, our community center is located at 35 Waterview Boulevard in Parsippany, New Jersey. And our hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. These are the topics, general objectives that we'll be covering throughout today. Apply theory of intersectionality in regard to the LGBTQ plus community. Be mindful of the use of pronouns. Understand privilege and societal norms. Gain insight about stigma in relation to the LGBTQ plus community. Understand LGBTQ plus statistics, that's local and national. And create affirming spaces. So that's essentially going to be a conversation around how do we make our social and also our professional spaces more affirming and approachable, right? How could we be an ally and supporter of those that we provide care to? I see that someone in the chat said, I went to the Pride event last year and had a wonderful time. I'm so happy, and thank you for commenting that. I'm glad you had a great time. And it also monsooned last year. So, you know, we're crossing our fingers and knocking on any wood around you that it's going to be bright and sunny. So this is our first topic, understanding the history of LGBTQ plus community. We're honestly going to speed through this just because it's a lot, but I want you to take away that the queer LGBTQ plus community isn't something new. This isn't something that just came into our, you know, our history within the past few years, right? This is dating back many, 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 many years. Since the beginning of time, there has been LGBTQ plus advocates and leaders and spearheaders. It's just, unfortunately, with society, a lot of these LGBTQ plus movers, these huge people that we should be noting and when we're taking history in high school, aren't being talked about. So it is a fairly new concept for a lot of people. But we can have a whole history class in high school on just LGBTQ plus queer leaders. So this is just one slide. There's 3 slides part of this. I'm just going to quickly kind of go through this. But this is just, like I said, to kind of spark that curiosity and that this is nothing new. And this stops at 2017, but we're at 2024, and there's been a lot more since then as well. So the importance of cultural humility. Cultural humility is a practice of self-reflection combined with an openness to understanding people of different cultures or backgrounds than one's own. With the lens of LGBTQ plus cultural humility, one can begin to understand how LGBTQ plus folks experience the world in a different way, which is why we changed the title of this workshop from LGBTQ plus competency to LGBTQ plus cultural humility. Because this workshop is essentially a workshop on teaching the variances and differences and the diversity within the larger LGBTQ plus queer community. And we are going to be talking about those different identities and terminologies, like I said, and the differences of them. So this is a great slide to start with, kind of explaining the LGBTQ plus community. So this is a very common activity. Many of you might be familiar with this. Some of you might not, but this is essentially called the genderbread person activity. And there's a lot of different variations of this. We use this one because it's a great way to also conceptualize how different we all could be, how unique we can all be. What are the different attributes, characteristics, and if I could say intersections that make up who we are and how we can play around with them, and how sometimes in society, we're not taught that we can actually play around with all these different aspects that make up who we are. So we have the brain, which obviously points to the head of our genderbread person. That holds our identity, right? Who we are, how we see the world, what kind of lens do we see the world through, whether that be a female lens, a male lens, a non-binary lens, or so on. Attraction, that's our heart. Where do our romantic and sexual feelings, where are they geared towards? Another female, another male, maybe both, maybe neither, maybe something a little different. Sex, what is our biological anatomy? Or deeper than that, what is our internal hormonal balance, right? It's not sometimes what you see, but also what we got inside could be the difference of sex as well. That could be female, male, or maybe intersex, right? Intersex is a community of people who have something a little bit different or have a mixture of both sexes within them. And then overall expression, and that's to the left of our genderbread person. And that essentially encompasses how we express ourselves, how we are showing our whole being to our world, right? That goes down to what color nails we have, or if we have a wig or natural hair, short hair, long hair, Crocs, boots, heels, stilettos, skirts, pants, all those different variations are how we are able to present and express ourselves. And as you see to the other side of this slide, we have a sliding scale. And this is to show that all this is very fluid, right? A lot of things when we are talking about the LGBTQ plus community, we're measuring on a fluid scale. So gender identity, I used myself in this example. So I identified, like I introduced myself in slide 2 with the introduction. I'm part of the cisgendered community. So I'm a cis male. And what essentially cisgendered is when someone currently identifies with the gender and sex that they were assigned at birth. Since I was brought into this world and the doctor put on my birth certificate that he's a male, that was my sex, that was my gender, that's what's on my birth certificate. I never changed it. I feel comfortable as a male to this day. I then consider myself cisgender. However, if maybe, let's say in today's time, I see myself as a female in my heart and in my soul, I see myself as a female and I want to go by maybe Jennifer, then I wouldn't be cisgender. I would be considered transgender. Transgender is the complete opposite of cisgender. Or for another example, and we'll further explain these two communities in a later slide, but maybe if I don't agree with either gender, maybe I'm non-binary because I don't agree with the social definitions of gender, then I might be they, them, or non-binary, right? And that's also on this fluid scale. So I'm cisgender. The next one is gender expression, right? That's what I was talking about with the overarching, encompassing intersection, right? I would put myself more in the non-binary androgynous versus the masculine side of gender, because honestly, yesterday I came into work wearing high heels, right? It depends on where I am, what's the feeling I wake up with, depends on how I feel like expressing myself on that day. Sometimes I even do a certain level of drag, right? That doesn't determine what gender I am. That just determines how I'm expressing myself on that day. I can be a cis male and wear stilettos or wear high heels or wear a wig. That doesn't depend, or that doesn't rely on my sex or gender. My next one is biological sex. I put myself all the way on the male side of that spectrum. Sexual orientation, I put myself all the way on the queer side of that spectrum just because I identify as a gay male myself. But this is also really great because it shows how separate all these different identities can be from one another. And for a lot of times, we're grown up grouping them into meaning one thing. If you're male, you have to express yourself on this way. You have to have these types of attributes or characteristics. And that's actually not true at all, right? There's a lot of fluidity when we're actually breaking down those stigmas or those barriers. This is the acronym slide, so I'm going to quickly run through them and define them. So L stands for lesbian, which is a female who is romantically and sexually attracted towards another female. G stands for gay, which is a male who is sexually and romantically attracted towards another male. Bisexual, B, is when someone is romantically and sexually attracted towards more than one gender. So that could be they are equally attracted to the male as just as much as they're equally attracted to females, just as much as they're equally attracted towards non-binary individuals. Transgender, as I previously defined, is someone who currently identifies as a different sex or gender than the one that they were assigned at birth. I'll just re-vocalize my example I provided earlier. I was born in the hospital as a male, that's on my birth certificate, and I was provided a name, a gender, a sex, and in today's time, I actually want to go by a different name, and I want to go by a gender or sex that I currently agree with my current time, right? Which could be very different, could be female. That's someone who is transgender. Queer, which is actually, so Q has two definitions, which one is queer, which is an umbrella term, right? That is maybe if you're not comfortable saying all the letters in this acronym, LGBTQ+, you could also just sub it out with the queer community. And for a lot of people, there might be some comfortability levels with that term, because I know I was growing up with the term queer being a bad thing, being an insult, a derogatory term. But actually, in fact, in today's time, a lot of the LGBTQ plus identified individuals have overtaken that term to mean an empowering word. Now it's a term of strength to be able to say that I'm part of the queer community. So yes, it's okay to say the word queer, but I also want to also add some level of sensitivity when using it, that you should always just kind of, read those facial recognitions and make sure that you're able to support them just in case they might not be seeing that word as an empowering word, to be able to say, I meant that in the best way possible, right? But more than less, it'll be positively receptive. Then the other word for Q, which isn't on here, is questioning. And that's a community of people who are currently still feeling out which community that they are best suited in, right? All these different letters, these different communities have a certain criteria, if you will, have a definition to them. Like I said, L, lesbian, a female who is romantically and sexually attracted towards another female. But what if you only have experiences, if you're female, dating other males, but you've never dated another female before? How do you define yourself? Maybe you don't want to see yourself as someone who's straight, and maybe you don't want to introduce yourself as lesbian, and you don't know yet if you're bisexual. So there's a community called questioning for people like that who might not have fully experienced the full spectrum of how they want to identify, right? So they could just introduce themselves as being questioning, and someone could be questioning for their entire life. It's a legitimate community of people. Then we have intersex, which I defined at our genderbread activity, which that is someone who has a different sex than the typical male female, right? There's also a certain criterion definition of being, in the male sex, right? Given hormone balances and, certain anatomy parts. But what happens if you have something a little bit different or neither? then you'd be part of the intersex community, which that is identified on the progressive flag as the yellow and purple circle. Then we have the asexual community, and then we have the pansexual community, which those also, asexual is someone who you don't have kind of like the sexual attraction towards someone, but you might still find someone as like an intimate companion, right? It's just the sexual pull might not be there, right? And then you have pansexual, which is the complete opposite of asexual. And then the plus. So plus is always important to add onto this terminology, right? This acronym LGBTQ plus. And this one we have a few more, LGBTQIAP plus. And the plus is there to signify that this community is always ever expansive and ever growing. And the reason for that is because if you differ from the heterosexual cisgender identity, then you're part of the queer community. And there's new communities popping up left and right every day. And that's the beautiful part of being in the queer community, is that there's so many different sub-communities to be a part of, right? And the importance of community is to be able to find a sense of comfort in people who identify similar to you. So it's always important to always end the acronym LGBTQ with a plus. Also, I'm going to do a little reminder. I also have one eye on the chat. So if I am going too fast, if I'm not explaining something as clear, feel free to use that chat and I can just kind of go back in a slide, or I can re-talk about any given topic. So this is the slide on pronouns. Pronouns are terms that we use to refer to other people, right? That's he, him, she, her, they, them. On here we have a few newer ones that might be new to some of y'all. Z, zer, zer, z, them, zer, zers. These are all different ways that we could refer to someone, right? That is his coffee cup. You can't see it, it's a little blurry, but I'm holding a coffee cup. That's his pen, that's her pen, or, that's their pen, that's that's their pen, or so on. So actually a really interesting fact is that the APA, which is a writing style, which I grew up with in college, actually affirms and accepted that they, them, themselves, plural terms could be used in singular use, which is actually a pretty cool, interesting fact. I believe that was introduced in 2015, so that academia is progressing in the right direction, if you will, as well. But I also want to note that this isn't the limit that people have for pronouns. This is just the most common. Pronouns could be anything. I've heard of people being referred to as diva, as orange, right? It's really up to the person. That's the great thing about pronouns, which is also why it's always important to ask for people's pronouns, because you never know what they could be. So here I have a statistic: transgender and non-binary young people who reported that all of the people they lived with respected their pronouns reported lower rates of attempted suicide. It really does matter. Imagine if you are walking through life and people, given in this example, you're a male, referred to you or always kept on mistaking you for a female and always referred to you as her or she, right? After a while, that might upset you because that's not how you see yourself. Vice versa, if you're a female and you kept on being referred to as him or that's his, right? That it would, after a while, might upset you and it might irritate you a little bit, right? So we definitely do have to work, and that's also me included. There are times when I make a mistake and there is a huge learning curve to this, that we have to just really be on ourselves and really have that vulnerability that when we do make a mistake, because it'll happen, I still make mistakes even though I work in a pride center, I still catch myself and say, oh, I'm sorry, I called you by the wrong pronoun. Or I'll just ask for their pronoun again and again and again. And asking for their pronouns actually shows more initiative than guessing and getting it wrong or assuming, because by you asking for their pronouns and respecting their pronouns shows that you are holding a competent and affirming space, a safe space, a space where they can be seen who they truly are. And that is something that is so unique and hard to find. There's so many other social service providers out there or resource providers that just assume because they don't have this type of insight or lens to be able to ask. And it really does affect people. And by you respecting their pronouns does in fact break down walls so that they could be more open to you. And you might be surprised what new information you might uncover by having that type of rapport with someone. So just to kind of also tie in what I said earlier, she, her, herself, it's typically used by the female community. He, him, himself is typically used by the male community. They, them, themselves is typically used by the non-binary community. Again, non-binary is a community of people who don't go by the social identities of female, male, right? That's a social construct. But what happens if you don't see yourself as living up to the male standards or the female standards? There's the non-binary community. And that takes away that, I guess, that construct of I have to be male, I have to be female. There's that third gender, which is non-binary. And then there's the other one, which is non-conforming. And non-conforming is a community of people who don't use pronouns. They don't have a gender, right? They don't see the need of being in a gender. So those are kind of like the different variances of pronouns, of genders, and how you could attach pronouns to genders. But again, you know, it's always safer to ask for people's pronouns. And we'll kind of go over those examples towards the end of this slide deck. So this is not exactly what I talked about as examples later on. What I was referring to is like, how do we adapt that and kind of ask for people's pronouns, which we'll get into later. But these are some examples that we can talk about as to the importance of pronouns and how do we use pronouns when, again, they're part of the non-conforming community and they don't have pronouns, right? Or a gender. So there's the first one. I can't wait to see you. Sierra, can't wait to see the person the current statement is directed towards, right? If they don't have a gender or a pronoun, or you don't know their pronouns and they're not there for you to ask, you can just use their name, right? Nick provided the LGBTQ plus humility training today instead of he provided the LGBTQ plus humility training today, right? You can just sub out pronouns with names if you don't know someone's pronouns, because it's never okay to assume. She is my friend. Kelly is Sierra's friend, right? I don't use pronouns. The person making the current statement does not use words to replace pronouns. If you find yourself in that kind of example where someone asks for someone else's pronouns, you can say they don't, or this person doesn't use pronouns. Because even saying they can attach a pronoun to it, right? When you're talking about that level of sensitivity. But again, it's a learning curve. It's not going to happen overnight. And also, this is part of the work that I do. So I will provide my contact information at the end of the slide deck. And feel free to just email me with any questions or if you need my assistance in any way, and I'll be more than delighted to help you with it. Gender neutral language. So we are, most of us are brought up learning certain professions have a gender to them, which in fact, in reality, they do not. What I mean by that is some people refer to firefighters as fireman or policeman. And when you say fireman, policeman, we might not be conscious of it, but we're actually assigning a gender to a profession. Women are firefighters, women are police officers, right? So we have to try to start making that change when we're talking in groups or talking in our social settings or professional settings, when we're referring to a profession. Is there more of a gender neutral way to say certain things? Firefighter, police officer, instead of saying good morning, boys, good morning, girls, good morning, guys, we could say good morning, folks, or good morning, everyone, or good morning to the group, right? There are certain ways that we could make a more inclusive and affirming, gender neutral environment. And it does make a difference. We might be kind of numb to it in certain areas, and I'm always catching myself saying hi guys or hello guys, but it's also that practice, and after enough of it, it'll actually become more natural of changing it to more of an inclusive, gender neutral language. And there's some other examples on this slide as well. And once again, I'm going to mention this every other 3 slides. If you want me to go back on a slide or re-explain something more in depth, feel free to mention that in the chat. So intersectionality, I kind of threw in this term when I was talking about the genderbread activity, right? The different intersections that we get to play around with on a fluid scale, how sex is different from gender, from expression. So this is kind of a really in-depth, informative wheel. It's the Duckworth wheel, introduced in 2020, and it really does a great job explaining how unique each individual person is, given their background, their status, their religion, their race, their culture, their married status, financial status, their sexual orientation, their age, their disability and ability to do certain things, their education, their geographic, where are they placed in this world, all really puts forth how they're walking through life, right? What their privilege level is and what they might need support in. And this is why we have to always approach each individual case. And what I mean by case is who you're providing services towards, very unique, and to not assume anything. And so that way we can offer the best and most comprehensive support that we possibly can provide someone. So I'll leave this up for a few more, but again, I have the citation of this inclusive wheel noted on this slide, so feel free to look it up. I also will have this on the end of our slides, and as it was said in the beginning, this will also be recorded, so you can also reflect on this at a later time. But this is also really good to just kind of be aware of. Heteronormativity. So we do live in a world where generally speaking, it's heteronormative. What I mean by that is that straight people, heterosexual individuals, cisgendered individuals don't have a period in time in their life where they need to sit down, their mom, their dad, their aunt, their uncle, their friends, their teacher, their colleagues, their boss, their babysitter, whoever they might be in their life, they don't have to go through a period in time where they have to sit them down and say, hey, listen, I'm gay. I would like you to refer to me as she, where I'm transgender and non-binary. I'd like you to refer to me as she, her, herself pronouns. Or, instead of Nick, I actually would prefer to be called Abby, right? Or you don't have to really sit down and teach people how you want to be kind of looked at or identified as. However, if you're part of the queer community, that is a step that most people do have to take. For example, if you have a work function and you want your significant other to go along with you, you might have to sit down with your boss and your teammates to be like, hey, listen, I'm gay, and I'm gonna bring my boyfriend, I'm gonna bring my husband to this event, right? Or by simply just showing up with them, that is a form of coming out, which a lot of people don't recognize as a form of coming out. But when you're part of the queer community, there's always situations of coming out. I know when I walk down a park, or I walk down the streets of Manhattan and I hold my boyfriend's hand, that is a form of me coming out to everyone around me. And I'm putting myself subject to everyone's beliefs and viewpoints around me too, which is also the risk factor of coming out. So this is a really important topic to understand, of heteronormativity, and to understand the privilege that also comes with that. And to also realize that some of our clients, the people that we provide care to, or our friends or colleagues, might not have that privilege, right? And they might need that kind of friend, that ally that could be there to support them through those things. I have a statistic on the lower corner of the screen. 58% of transgender adults surveyed did not come out until the age of 18, while 30% did so before the age of 18. 12% have not come out yet. And this is coming from a survey that was done by the Trevor Project from about 35,000 individuals ranging from 13 to about 24 years old in the United States. And again, just as it's cited, it was in 2023, so just last year. It's a very relevant statistic to be aware of. A lot of children don't feel safe sometimes coming out to their parents or to their foster parents or to whoever is taking care of them, right? And you as a social service provider or as their case manager, whoever you are in their life, you might be the only person that has that sensitive information, right? And it's important to protect that and to hold on to that with respect as well. Which is also speaks to the large statistic as far as youth homelessness as well, is because when people do come out, sometimes they're kicked out of their homes as well, which is also the sad part of coming out as well. So this is the activity that I was talking about in the beginning. It is our privilege activity. We're not going to dive too deep into this, but essentially it's you take your first letter of your name, and that gives you how much privilege money you have. My name is Nicholas, so my name begins with an N. So I start off with this activity with $1,200 privilege points. I have a colleague, Daniela. Her name begins with D, so she'll start off with 600. And again, I have the breakdown right on this slide. So if you want to kind of quickly partake, you can quickly jot them down, but we're not going to really do this activity for much longer, but it is very insightful. So these are the 20 privilege statements or kind of experiences. And if you have one of these privileges, again, you give yourself a point. Or 100 points. And, the point of the activity is how much you have left over. And for a lot of people, it's not very much. So the first one is being able to complete forms and paperwork with the information you feel most accurately communicates who you are. This is not a privilege for a lot of people. It's a privilege for me, fortunately, because I'm cisgender and I currently use the name that I was given at birth. So, I can complete paperwork like intake forms, right, with my sex and my gender and my name. But for a lot of people, they might have a different name on their driver's license or on their social security card than the name that they're currently using now. And that might not be a privilege that they have when doing intakes or filling out forms, right? Dating the person you desire in your teens. A lot of teenagers aren't out when they're young. That's not a privilege that a lot of people might have, part of the gay or trans or non-binary experience. Being open and having your partners accepted by your family. I know that that's not a privilege for a lot of people. Kissing and hugging and being affectionate in public without punishment, right? That's something that I'm still dealing with. That might be a privilege that I don't have, because when I hold my partner's hand, there are instances where I get bullied, even till this day, right? And it's just something that you got to face. Having others comfort you and support you when your relationship ends. If you're not out, people don't know you're in a relationship. Who's there to comfort you when you're in that time of need, right? And there's a lot of them. They fluctuate. I'm not going to go for every other one again because of time, but there are ones revolving around restrooms. Are you able to use the restroom comfortably and safely without being bullied or having the cops called on you? A lot of transgender, non-binary individuals don't have that privilege because they risk having the cops called on them or being, in some cases, even killed or murdered or being beaten up because of one simple thing of, do I use the bathroom that I have the parts to or the bathroom that I currently identify and express myself of? And that could be a huge stressor for a lot of trans non-binary individuals. And that's a privilege that a lot of people might not recognize that they have. That was a huge privilege that actually, when I first did this activity, I didn't know I had, right? I didn't know I had that kind of a privilege of being able to use the bathroom, because that's such a simple thing that I never had a thought think of. But that's also the definition of privilege, is having the upper hand in life that you weren't really aware of because you never had to work for it, right? It was just given to you because of who you are in life. Stigmatization in national statistics. So stigma in relation to the LGBTQ plus community. So I identify, as I shared earlier, as a gay male, as a cisgender gay male. So with that, I do also come across a lot of stigma in relation to that, as I shared earlier. Doing something as simple as holding my boyfriend's hand in public does put me up to a lot of stigma, a lot of backlash, a lot of bullying, a lot of like, behind the scene whispering, judgmental whispering, right? That with age, I've come to just kind of be more comfortable in having that just around me, but it is still something that uh, prevents me from a lot of times being able to do, public affection, right? To where a straight couple might be able to just easily do without worrying about the judgment, right? There was a time, I want to say 5 years ago, with the guy that I was dating at the time, when I was walking down Broadway in Manhattan, and I was just holding his hand, and these groups of guys came walking towards us, and they actually pushed him on the ground and threw their drinks at me. And again, that wasn't the only time I got backlash from doing something as simple as holding someone's hand, but it was the most, I guess, physical interaction that I've had as a backlash on my experience. And people go through a lot worse, and some people don't have any kind of backlash when they do that, but it still exists. Just because you yourself don't hear or see it doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's really important to be an ally and still advocate for a safer space and more affirming space for LGBTQ plus colleagues and friends. So these are statistics. As of November 2023, 26 trans and gender nonconforming folks have been lost, according to the HRC, right? And that, I believe the number actually went up a lot more. We got that statistic when we were honoring our Transgender Day of Remembrance, which happens in November, but I believe it went up to 30 by the end of 2023, right? And those are people who were killed, who were murdered, targeted just because they use different pronouns, just because they look a little different. That was enough for someone to take their life, which is very unfortunate, very sad. And that calls the importance of this type of work and this level of education that we are providing. Right? Physical and verbal harm done to LGBTQ plus young people. We have a kind of a breakdown bar graph on that. And then next to it, we have a discrimination towards LGBTQ plus young people divided by race. These are mental health statistics. Again, considered an attempted suicide in the past year. We're looking at 2023. As you see, trans men, trans women are significantly higher than cisgendered individuals. And that's just kind of when we're looking and analyzing gender differences. And then the next one is anxiety and depression. Again, significantly a little bit more higher. LGBTQ plus older adult statistics, and we're almost done. We have a few more slides left. So this one is, the dark blue is the heterosexual straight community, and then the light blue is the cisgender community. I'm sorry, the straight cisgender is grouped into one, which is dark blue, and LGBTQ plus is the light blue. So anxiety symptoms, you see that LGBTQ plus individuals experience higher reports of anxiety, depression, higher than the heterosexual cisgender community. And I feel like the reason, if we want to speak onto that, is because of that coming out stigma component that's attached to your identity of being queer, being LGBTQ plus, right? Not always feeling fully accepted or being able to show all your colors everywhere that you are, and maybe having to feel out, is this a safe environment? Is this a safe person to disclose certain aspects of my identity? And the 50 to 64 you see is a little bit higher than the 65 plus. So these are just more additional statistics. 40% of LGBTQ plus adults 80 and older are within that kind of, I guess you can call it, bracket, below the 200% of the federal poverty level. 40% of bisexual older women, 40% of transgender older adults. And this is also kind of to speak on the resources that we have here in our county to support people who are part of these communities and these age brackets. right? Maybe more programs, more funding, more attention, more education needs to be directed to kind of level off the playing field and achieve that equity amongst these communities. This is in regards to policy. So I'm sure you're all aware of Florida and Texas and their book banning. You can't even access an LGBTQ plus book or a book on race in a lot of these states, right? They're kind of fading them out to where they're not even talked about, which I can't even imagine being a youth who can't even access a book on LGBTQ plus history or culture in your public library or school. A lot of these people can't access this information at home. So that's essentially making it impossible to really figure out who they are. And they just might see themselves as just being different. And that could lead to a very scary place for a lot of people, which then could speak to why those bar graphs, when we're looking at anxiety and depression, are so high in youth, especially in this time of age, right? Because yes, New Jersey is very progressive. We're very fortunate to be in a state that is as progressive as we are, but it also depends on what county you're in New Jersey. It could also depend on how much of that you experience, right? I know a lot of counties are still fighting for something as simple as a flag raising in their community in New Jersey versus others, like in Morris County Pride, we have a whole festival, right? But it really depends on where you are. We definitely need to advocate for more affirming, inclusive, of a higher presence of acceptance. This is a map of the United States, and it's on adoption rights for foster care. So as you see, we are in New Jersey, we're dark green. The United States is kind of divided amongst different shades of green. We got the dark green being New Jersey, New York, being California, a lot of other states. Those are states with all protections. It doesn't matter your sexual orientation or your gender identity, you have the full rights of the state to be able to adopt. Then we have the little bit lighter green states like Arizona and a few other ones. Those are states where you only have protections for your sexual orientation, but not your gender identity. So you can be gay, lesbian, bisexual, be able to adopt. However, if you're transgender, non-binary, non-conforming, you could be essentially turned away or face more barriers because you don't have the full protections of the state. And then we have the lighter green states, which we can just call beige at this point, which is Texas, Florida, our next door neighbors in PA. Those are all states that don't have any protections. You can be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, non-binary, non-conforming, and they can just turn you away because you don't have the amount of protections supporting you through that process. It could be a lot harder, a lot more hoops to jump through. And then we have the states with the caution yellow symbols. Texas, we even have those in green states. Those are states where you might have protections for the state to adopt, but those states do allow private agencies to apply for permits so that they're more easily able to discriminate. So even though the state might be full supportive on the transgender, non-binary, gay, lesbian, queer communities, if this private company houses these forms, they can just say, no, sorry, we don't serve your community or your kind, your identity. And they can turn you away because they have that form. So those are those states with the caution symbols. So we have a long way to go in advocacy. We're not teaching history. We're not teaching, we don't live in a world right now or in an era where we have equal rights. We still have a long way to go for especially our transgender, non-binary communities. We still have to fight for equity and equality in this world, which we're in 2024. It's really sad to say that, but there is that false impression where we are all equal at this time of age, which is simply just not true. But hopefully one day soon we will be. This is another slide on policy. So currently we have 496 anti-LGBTQ plus bills in the US being voted on, right? Those are current bills that are active going against LGBTQ plus people, ranging from education to mental health access, to healthcare access, to foster care access, right? And each state has a little bit more or a little bit less. As you see, the darker ones are the ones that have a little bit more, right? But we all have to fight. And I believe on the last slide, we do have a link where you can click on to be able to write to your local senators to be able to make a difference in fighting for that, because your voices do matter. Silence does hurt this movement. Aha, here's the slide. So you can either scan this with your phone, or you can go to the website and you can kind of do a little written statement if you want to be an advocate and ally for the community to kind of raise your voice and make a difference in your local state. We do have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to move on to this slide and then we're done. So this is our affirming practices slide. So how do we make our social and professional environments more affirming, right? So that is asking for people's pronouns, right? I always here at the community center, especially because we're an LGBTQ plus queer community center, I always introduce myself with my pronouns. Hi, my name is Nicholas. I'm the development coordinator here and I use he, him, himself pronouns. Why I do that is because it allows the other individual to be open-minded and be like, oh, that's interesting. They share their pronouns. For the heck of it, I'll share my pronouns, right? And you might be surprised with what you get back, right? I've been surprised myself with people who I internally assume would go a certain way. I've been surprised that they've actually used non-binary, they, them, themselves pronouns. This is great to adapt into your practice today. If you have a counseling session, if you have a meeting with someone, with your clients, just introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Abigail. I use she, her, herself pronouns. Your client that you've been working with for 2+ years might then be like, oh, wow, okay, well, I'll share my pronouns, I guess. And they might come out you with they, them, themselves or something a little bit different. Like I said, pronouns are ever expansive and there's a huge variety to them. I also attach my pronouns on my email signature. So even when I'm emailing out to other organizations or other community members, my pronouns are attached. So that shows the level of understanding of the LGBTQ plus community, right? It shows that I'm an ally as well. I always have my nameplate with my pronouns. Here at Edge, New Jersey, we have our nameplate outside of our offices. We have our name, our title with our pronouns. Right, so even members, when they're walking down the hallways, see, oh, okay, they have pronouns, kind of competency in this area. Always ask for someone's name along with their legal name, right? Just because they might have a different name on their intake, on their driver's license, than they want to go by. Right here we have on our intake form, legal name or name on ID, and then we have name. Right? We're also fading out the term preferred name. That's also not an okay thing to say because someone doesn't have a preferred name, they have a name. So it's either their legal name or their name. So also kind of move into that kind of segue of, what's your name? Does it differ from the name on your driver's license? Right? That way, all these different ways that we hold our conversations and get to know the people that we work with a little bit more help us provide better services and care, because then that can open up the doorway to be like, oh, I know a great resource, Edge, New Jersey, who's a Pride Center that I think you would have a great time at, right? There's all these different ways that you can support someone. Also just be an ally, be that person, behavioral health counselor, case manager that someone can come out to and entrust that their disclosures will be kept safe and confidential. So these are different ways that you can make an impactful difference in your community. We are a non-for-profit. We offer all our programs and services to little to no cost to those in need. So we totally take away any financial or geographic barriers. Like I said, we also can dispatch a lift or a van or a car to whoever needs it. That could be if you have someone in your caseload that is gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and they disclose to you that they want to join a social support group, or they want to change their name, or they want to change their gender marker on their birth certificate, send them over to us and we can take care of that. We also offer all our programs and services a la carte, as we like to say. So they don't, so if you refer them to us, we work with you. You never stop being their case manager. You never stop being their behavioral health counselor. We'll just support you in doing whatever project or task that they need done. It's not like you refer them over to us and we sign them up for everything. We only support our members in what they need support with. So we do definitely work with our community support resources, and we always want our door open to whoever wants to be referred to us for whatever that might be. We also have a lot of volunteer initiatives, that whether that be volunteering for Morris County Pride Festival June 22nd, or AIDS Walk on May 5th, or even if you want to do a volunteer administrative task like run the front desk or help us with papers, or run a group, a social support group, we're always looking for facilitators for those things. And the list goes on and on. But that is what I have to present today. So thank you so much for sticking with me, for listening to everything that I had to say. I hope you found all these slides to be insightful and that you are leaving today with a little bit more information than when you came in. And I will stick around for a few more minutes for Q&A for those who are here, but also, you know, take down my name. You can also find my email on the website. You can also call us at the number provided. This is what I do. This is my passion. So if you really do have a client or member, however you refer to the people that you provide care to, that come in and you need assistance in learning more about their identity or how they disclose to you, or if you would like more resources, even resources that Edge New Jersey doesn't provide for an LGBTQ plus individual, I'll be more than happy to respond to that email or to call you back to support you in any way that I can. But thank you so much. I appreciate your time once again. And any questions are delighted during this time.
Thank you, Nicolas, for being here, doing this amazing presentation. It was very informative. I actually am very happy that you took the time to provide this information to us and our community. With that, we are going to go to our Q&A session, and that part is not recorded. Thank you.